Work order session to order. Hey, Vince.
Hi there. Oh, we have just a quorum. Okay. Oh, that's right. No, that's not. You're appointing 2 members. All right. So the superintendent asked me to make myself available for questions. By looking at your agenda, you're doing your organizational meeting this evening, and then you are also appointing two members to the board because you have 2 vacancies. So before I dive in, I mean, I have policies that I can show you, but are there any specific questions that you have about organizational meeting or what is that? And
Do you want a brief description or?
I don't have any questions. I mean, I can't figure it out. We got two applicants for 2, right? And they're both for the same term, so it doesn't matter which one we appoint to, right? Is that more or less true? Or is it?
And I assume you're going to. I see no reason that you wouldn't appoint, but you technically do not have to appoint if you interview them and you find them both unacceptable for what reason. So,
But it's the same thing. It doesn't matter which goes where, because it's at large, right? It's not by address.
yeah, they are at large positions. You guys need to determine which one you seek number 4, because that person voting on number 5, I suppose,
I figured out that.
would be the most complex element of it. But
I got to be fairly non-controversial, so I don't know.
Got a little small towns?
yeah, if there's no specific questions, I can talk about it briefly. I mean, I'll put up your policy so that we should always ground everything in policy, right? Follow our own rules. So when a vacancy occurs on the board, you are legally required to declare a vacancy, and then you're obligated to appoint and replace those individuals. And that is done through your executive power to appoint. After that, the law is pretty silent as to how you go about it. Your process can be very simple or it can be very elaborate. And I'll tell you that across the state, processes run the gamut from, appointing the person in the front row and asking them if they want to be on the school board to elaborate application processes with, with questionnaires and multiple interviews and things like that. So it really does vary based on the needs of the board. I think the key thing in what should be in the back of your head as you're interviewing these individuals is thinking about the need of the board and the district and the type of board members that you need to round out your governing body. So each of you comes with a unique skill set and lived experience. And so think about the colleagues that you would like to work with to help, the district do its work to serve kids. So yeah, the vacancy is filled through appointment. I would recommend that you, when you do it says in your policy that you immediately swear in the person and seat them upon their appointment. That's fine, except that you don't want to take a person who's unprepared to be in a meeting and throw them into a school board meeting and expect them to vote on something that they haven't been prepared for. So based on either revise your policy here, your policy BBE, to give yourself a little more flexibility on when you seat that person and swear them in, or just make sure that you place your appointment at the end of the agenda so that person that's been appointed doesn't get thrown into a situation where they aren't prepared to participate. That's not good. Yeah.
So first question off of that, if we alter the agenda and move the seating to the very last action item so that nothing else is an action item for this person, they could sit on the dais, they could be up close and personal with what's happening, but they don't have powers to take actions because they're not seated until that motion is made and approved. Is that?
No, actually, they have to, one of the qualifications to be a school board member is to take the oath of office. So it actually happens, you have to have a successful motion to appoint, and then you swear them into the, it's just the requirement. And you could do the oath of office anywhere, anytime. There's no legal stipulations on where that can or can't happen. It can happen at midnight on the 50-yard line on the football field if you want. And it doesn't, the law doesn't stipulate who administers the oath of office. It can, and that again runs the gamut. Sometimes it's the board secretary, often it's the board chair that does that, sometimes the superintendent. I've never heard of this happening, but it would be really cool if someone did this, is having a student swear in board members. I thought that would be really neat. So yeah, you have some flexibility there on when you do that. I would just once you have that motion to appoint, but your policy says on appointment by the board, the newly appointed board members will be sworn and seated immediately. So if you don't want to do that, just suspend your policy BBE and then, just take a vote to suspend it. And then you can, swear them in after the meeting, which is pretty typical. That's usually how that's handled.
I think, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go
I
ahead.
think both of these people that we're interviewing tonight are pretty familiar with the whole school district and what's, everything that's been happening, so I don't feel that's a conflict unless anybody else does.
The only action item on here besides the appointment of the new board members is the consent agenda that I see.
The charter agreement.
That's under the consent agenda.
No, it's
not
Oh,
Yes, the consent agenda, when you get the first initial action on the agenda,
why am I not?
approve the charter agreement, the organization, approve the HASP plan, a whole bunch of policies.
Yeah, that's below the consent agenda. It's on page 2.
No, page 3.
Right.
Action.
Oh, okay, that's the end of it.
Those are
Okay.
pretty-
I see. Oh, yeah, I see. There's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
I see. I just didn't read the agenda.
I mean, so I don't know that's my feeling, I don't know how you guys feel.
So my question was just gonna be that they both will be here, right, tonight, that they know that they'll
My
be,
understanding.
okay.
Yeah.
Just so there's no surprises to be like, oh, I didn't know it was gonna be, they had to be here so soon.
So every one of these items from 3 down is going to require a motion, is that correct?
Everything
Yes.
for May again. Everything.
Where it says action,
Yeah.
on down. Okay.
So yeah, you have a pretty packed agenda. So that would be my recommendation, is that, I mean, unless there's an expectation that these individuals have been provided the packet and were advised to prepare for that, it would not be fair to put them on the dais and say, hey, vote yes on these things. Trust us.
How do you feel, Chris?
I think we just appoint them, they can abstain if they don't like it.
Yeah.
Let's just get them on here. That's my, I think.
So,
Any other?
because we have 2 open spots and 2 applicants, do we open the first one and interview one and then appoint them, and then open the second one and interview the second one for the second position? Or do we interview them both and just say, okay, you're appointed to one, you're appointed to one? Is it 1 and 5, I believe?
Yeah, and I'm looking for, in the position, you are going to fill them. So in the event of multiple vacancies, the position vacated first will be filled first. So you have to take the positions as they were vacated.
Is that position one?
Yeah, that one.
One listed first?
Won't make any difference, they both have the same ending term,
Right,
so they're identical.
yeah.
And,
I guess just-
both candidates are gonna get,
So, excuse me. Bonnie Boer resigned first, and that is position 5. Bob Moran resigned second, and that is position 1.
So then you'll need to consider them in that order.
which is the opposite of the way they're listed, but,
We'll probably need to change that on the agenda.
Or we would just appoint it and say position, we could just appoint to the positions, correct? And say, okay, we just have to say position 5 first.
Open seats.
Okay,
Just interview them both and then appoint them to the positions.
You could do it that way.
You could do it that way. Again, process doesn't really matter, but your policy does stipulate that you have to fill them in the order in which they were vacated.
If it was a contended position and lots of applicants, you want to be able to say in advance, this is the process we're going to follow. 2 out of 2 probably isn't going to require a lot of explanations. But you're also kind of establishing precedent if it happens again next year. What the process will we follow? We're consistent with our own prior.
Any other questions on vacancies?
I don't have any. Nope.
Okay. Staff, was there anything that I should touch on that you'd like me to discuss?
Yeah, now that it's 2 out of 2, I'm not even too worried
Yeah.
about the process.
Okay. Alrighty, then let's shift gears and talk about your organizational meeting. Your organizational meeting is part of it's an extension of your authority as the governing body. You ultimately are responsible for the district and what happens, and so your organizational meeting is an expression of that. You have a policy on that. So that's policy BC, organizational meeting. And it specifies the things that you will do. So you're going to elect board officers. You're going to set your regular meeting agenda. And so those regular meetings are the ones that you just put on your calendar and then you plan for the year. Of course, we can add meetings, we can add special meetings, but we have to give 24 hours notice. And then hopefully you never have to use it, but you can also have emergency meetings. For those are meetings that you add to your calendar that you can't give 24 hours notice, and you just need to let folks, know in the meeting minutes why you couldn't give that 24 hours notice. And then you're going to be taking up an organizational resolution. That does a number of actions that are prescribed by law and your board practice. And I just pulled your last year's organizational meeting, but you have it in your agenda for tonight. It's the same list of things. We'll walk through that here. More policies. So this is your policy BCB. This is board officers. It doesn't say anything in the policy as itself, but it is cross-linked to policy BC. So that's where board officers are elected, and it just specifies that. And then over here in BDA, which policy is this? This is your board meetings. It talks about your organizational meeting as well. So this stipulates, again, that your regular meeting schedule will be established in your annual organizational meeting. Also stipulates in compliance with statute that it should be the next regular meeting following July 1st, and it should happen no later than July 31st. So currently the board's out of compliance. So it's good that you're doing that tonight and getting this knocked out.
I think that's for election years.
What was that?
I think that's for election years because we had Kim and Cindy join the board after they were elected in. We had to have a July meeting for that organization, but this is an even numbered year.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the statute. and confirm my understanding there, but maybe that's the case. And that's what I'm seeing here, odd numbered years. Not very, I mean, it's just repeating what we already know from policy BC. Some more interesting stuff over in the D section is authorized signatures. So you are going to, at the annual organizational meeting or at other times deemed necessary by the board, authorize the superintendent or the district clerk. That's one of the things that you'll do in your organizational resolution is identify John there in your superintendent as the clerk of the district, shall be the custodian of all district funds and securities and banks designated by the board. So again, you're delegating your authority to the superintendent by taking that action. Under policy DG, depository of funds, you designate annually that the board at its annual organizational meeting and other times deemed necessary by the board will designate one or more banks. So this is stipulated and it's under ORS to do that. And then, yeah, this is, let me zoom in here. This is last year's agenda, but I'm guessing that this year's agenda looks really, really similar. So these are the different actions that are embedded in your organizational resolution. And just to clarify what a resolution is, so often we get the question of what's a proclamation and what's a resolution and how is that different than a motion? And could we just do this with motions? And you could take up a motion for each of these things and do it that way. But the reason why we don't do that, a resolution is a vehicle, it's a parliamentary vehicle where we can take all this stuff in there and give all the reasons for why we're taking these actions and do it with one vote. And that's what a resolution is. A proclamation is kind of the same thing. It's something that the board is saying out loud, and you create a document about that, and then you approve it. So yeah, you're designate your chief administrative officer, John Zwemke, as clerk of the district. And then you're gonna have deputy clerk, business manager, which is going to be your business manager, your finance officer. The clerk is often the custodian of funds, is ultimately responsible for protecting and the appropriate use of funds in the district. Your designated is your budget officer, so he's the fellow that makes the budget and brings it before the board. He's also signing the checks. This is very common that the superintendent is the person that does the check signing. You also choose professional services here and approve those. Auditors. And this is often a time when boards will ask, have we done an RFP on this? And it's not a good time to do that because you're at your organizational meeting, you need to approve those. So if you want to take a look at your professional services that you're retaining, do that after the organizational meeting and do that over this next year and take a look at those if you're going to go back out and look for auditors or attorneys and things like that. It's bad form to, at the organizational meeting, raise those questions with the superintendent. You can ask it, but don't expect them to say, "Oh yeah, we'll do an RFP and get back to you," because they need that approval because you have to have an auditor, you have to have an insurance agent, so on. So auditor, you're required to do an audit every year because you're a public entity, so you have to cause that to happen. You also have to have insurance for the district. You need district council and you work with GHR. And then like in your policy aligned with statute, you have to have, financial institutions where you're going to deposit district funds. So in small districts, this is pretty typical, authorizing the superintendent to apply for grants. In larger districts, it's often a district office person that does that. Alternative education programs, you approve those in here. You also identify your newspaper of record. This is a bit of an anachronism, but anything where you have to give a public notice in the news media, this is where you designate that. in some cases where we're doing that, it was used to be a lot more important because that's how the public got their public notices. Now everybody just goes to the website or watches social media. But it's still something that we have to do. You also authorize cooperative purchasing agreements, which is, well, John, why don't you tell them about your cooperative purchasing agreement? Who do you work with? ESD? Who else do you work with?
Primarily just the South Coast ESD.
Yeah, pretty typical. There are some other ones. Some districts do cooperative purchasing arrangements, and these are contracts that you enter into to get into a larger group to have more negotiating power to buy things like laptops and toilet paper and all the things that you need to make a school district go. And so that's all that is. And then finally here, and this is important, you reestablish yourself on an annual basis as the local public contract review board. So you are the individual. The board as an entity has the authority to enter into contracts. Below a certain threshold, you delegate that to the superintendent. But for the big stuff, it has to come before the board to be considered. And that's about it for the organizational resolution.
They increased it recently. I think it's 250. But big RFPs have to be approved by the board. So, there's a seismic one coming up. We're going to bring one to you regarding roofing at the high school. The transportation one is a big one, possibly a security fence one. So you have to approve the big ones. And then when we open RFPs and awarding any of those, that would also be the board responsibility. You could probably break it out to a subcommittee to bring information back to the board. They have to decide.
So, I mean, this is ministerial in nature, and so it can seem not very exciting, but it's actually pretty consequential. It's important that these things get done and that they're done with diligence and care. So, I guess that's my speech on organizational resolution and the organizational meeting. Any questions about that?
The appointment of school board members, have there been a larger group of applicants, the deliberation publicly is an important thing because we can't take that into executive session. So sometimes boards might feel uncomfortable having to talk about 4 people in the room, 2 seats, potentially type of scenario. But in this case, it probably is not at that same level of effect. But having those public deliberations about what you're doing so that the thinking of the board is transparent is something that I've also be aware of.
Yeah, doing a vacancy is one of the trickiest things you have to do because you have to select people, and if you have multiple applicants, you got to say no to somebody. And having that conversation in a public meeting is tough because we're all neighbors, right? And we all have to get along after the board meeting's over. So, yeah, keep your comments appreciative, talk about different strengths, and again, come back to what are the needs of the board? What are the needs of the district? So you can best serve your kiddos.
Questions? That all you got, Vince?
Is that it? You're letting me off light?
I do have a question if we got time. When was that survey plan that we talked about?
That's a good question. It depends on how fast the superintendent would like to move, but yeah, I'm happy to get a proposal in and we can talk about it. How fast would you like to move on that?
I mean, since it's coming up for the next evaluation, it would be nice to have it
Is that coming in December? Was that like the date? I forgot. When do we, December would be actual, the,
December is when my evaluation is due.
was actually supposed to be due, okay. So I guess,
And if
yeah,
you just kind of back map, probably need end of November, which is Thanksgiving, to start meeting and deciding and delivering. So the first part of November is
Okay.
probably more realistic.
that's gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the middle of summer and no one was around, so there wasn't anybody to survey, but we're in a place now that, you know, we have people coming back. When does school start for you folks?
August 31st is the first. August 31st is the first student date. Staff return on the 24th.
Oh, okay. So you guys are starting early. Okay.
And we'll have half our staff back next Tuesday, doing extra PD with IRE.
So, Charmin, could you find some time on John's calendar for us to meet and we can talk about what that survey can look like? Is probably next steps.
Yes, I will make a note.
Thank you very much.
Dave Vince, we may expedite that. I'm going to be having shoulder surgery next Tuesday.
Okay.
I may be a little out for a minute, and then boom, staff will be back. So if press time on, we may need to do it tomorrow or the next day, or Saturday morning. I don't know.
I'm with a charter school all tomorrow. I could do it tomorrow evening would be the soonest I could do it. So, and then Friday as well. I could chat Friday.
I'm available after 5:30 tomorrow night.
Okay. Yeah, just shoot me a text or give me a call and we'll figure out what we want that to look like. And then I'll get you a proposal.
Will we get to see that before it goes out?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll develop a proposal and it'll be, you know, you'll be able to see the scope of work and what the costs will be. And then, yeah, then you can make a decision on that. And I'll try and do it a la carte. So there'll be a survey and I'll probably put in some focus groups, interviews, things like that. So you can pick and choose what you want and, you know, what the costs will be.
Would that be like, we'll discuss that at our next meeting then? Is that how that would set up if it's going that fast or if we want to move forward with it?
When is your next meeting?
September
9th, maybe?
9th.
Yeah, that's realistic. I can have a proposal to you for that meeting. Yeah. And then if you give me the okie dokie, then we can go ahead and put it under contract and I can start work. Good question. Thank you. Anything else?
Thanks for me, Vince. I think we're good now.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You guys have a great meeting tonight.
Thank you, Vince.
Okay. Take care. See you later.
We're gonna do an agenda review. Is that-
Well, first question I'll always ask when we sit down with an agenda is, if you have any questions that you have when you're looking at the agenda and go through. Just to start.
I talked to Sherman earlier about just one of the notes that was wrong. So that, she's aware of that. I was going, like Vincent mentioned about the RFPs for the different, is that something that we can do next year? The RFPs for the different, for like
The insurance.
the insurance and legal and.
Yeah, the board gets to make those decisions if you want to do RFPs on projects or for vendors or for services.
So that's just, when do you start that? And then would that be for next year? Would that be something you would?
A typical RFP would need to be voted on in a meeting and probably 6 to 8 weeks of being out, available, trying to solicit people, turn in. Have to have a subcommittee meet to receive those items, have the openings at the same time. then the board has to say which one they're picking, then there has to be the opportunity for that appeal process. You probably need about 6 months of lead time. So if you are, next year will be an odd year, you'll have a July meeting. So back max 6 months, you probably need to be starting no later than January. If you have a project like this, and you know what they are, and the board is ready to have that discussion and records to make an RFP.
When was the last time that we did that, do you know?
Zalezi, we've been with for 3 or 4 years. Nooner Davidson has been 3 or 4 years. Garrett Heeman Robinson, we've had since my time here. Umpqua used to be Columbia. That's been our local bank. Registered Guard, News Review World, and not many choices.
I was thinking mostly just the vendors, like a bank isn't really a vendor, that's just mine.
So yeah, if you 6, 7, and 8 auditor, insurance, and legal counsel. Neuter Davidson, I'd say this is my 9th year, 4 years, and about the same amount of time for Zalezi, Garrett Robinson, and for 9 years. Pretty much 2 choices in Oregon. GHR is the main one. Hungerford is the other one that they focus on education law.
Do you have any other questions on the agenda?
Do we currently have any open positions now, or did all get filled, and that's what is listed here on the agenda?
Yeah, we have this consent agenda fills our positions will be fully staffed.
Oh, that's good.
Will they be here tonight, the new? I couldn't remember.
Are usually all teachers that like the back to school welcome barbecue?
When we do our end service the week of the 24th, we do a late start on Thursday the 27th, so their work day on that day is 10 to 6. And then we do the barbecue from 4 to 6, so they're in their work hours. And we get a much better turnout that way when they're still required to work.
Okay. It'd just be nice to meet them, so if they'll all be there, then that'll be.
This year, we're talking about splitting between the schools from 4 to 5, so that parents can go in, drop off supplies, some classrooms. At 11 o'clock, we're going to close the classrooms, transition to the back parking lot area, cafeteria area of the high school, the barbecue starting at 5:15 until 6, and that will be kind of the time frame when teachers will be around and available.
That's the 24th,
Please.
right?
27th. Like, are you good on a Thursday? Okay.
Thursday from 4 to 6 essentially. 4 to 5 will be split between the 2 buildings in their assigned classroom spaces. I need to talk in the microphone.
Anything else?
So hopefully, when you got your packet picked up, there is a lot of policy tonight, and we're going back. OSBA provides policy updates roughly every quarter, and about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, the board went through an entire overhaul of every policy, brought everything at that time up to date, current. So now, going forward, boards are in maintenance mode. So we took a little bit of a break. This is a little bit bigger chunk than it would normally be. Typical best guess is you might see anywhere from 5 to 10 policies a quarter that are required updates. Usually something happen legislatively that forces a requirement change, and maybe another 5 to 10 that are highly recommended. Because there's some important implicational things that may go down to the recommended level and then the optional level on those updates. So we see those roughly quarterly. This year is going to be the long session, a lot more legislation will go through. Usually following the big legislative sessions, more updates occur because different people have different bills they push through. Actually, sort of just how it flows. So tonight there's a lot of them, and in my case, I've got a lot of notes. Clear. So one of them in particular, I'll bring up during the meeting, is time sensitive. It has a end of the month deadline, so if we don't adopt it tonight, we'll have to have a second meeting before the end of the month. And that one has been tough to get because OSBA had a hard time putting together their model sample language. So we just got it 3 days ago, and now we have to try to push it through. So we can look at that and talk about it.
What policy is that? So if we have time, I can just.
Just a minute, please. I think it's KNA, but I'm going to verify. KNA, Immigration Enforcement on District Property.
That's your full packet.
Oh, I just.
There's more stuff in there.
Thanks.
So is that, I don't see that one on the agenda, John.
Separate
there.
as an action item, it's
Oh, on
page 4, letter D at the top.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I couldn't find it actually.
I pulled it out separate because it does have a time commitment. In theory, you guys got a glance at these at the June meeting. We can go through them tonight and you can say, okay, thank you for first reading, and bring them back in the September meeting and say, usually not more than a second reading, but sometimes there's more corrections and you take it back, fix it again. We'll look at it for a third meeting. So we can go through these. Board feels comfortable or the board gives direction, and decide if you adopt it tonight or if it comes back in September.
Do you want to talk about that now?
Since we put it on the agenda, and I got a note from the news media that they're actually coming to
Oh, okay.
hear what we have to say about it because it's a hot topic in Oregon. So
The immigration.
yeah, so news media out of Coos Bay emailed me this morning and said they were going to be here because they wanted to hear us deliberate on this.
Okay.
Okay. Kim, when we get to consent agenda, normally we do that as one motion. It is kind of nice to our community to read out about the donations, even though they are a consent agenda item,
Okay.
just so that we're giving appreciation for work and service of our community. I am going to scratch in my superintendent report letter D, the SIA grant agreement. That'll come back in September.
Letter E.
D for dog, SIA grant agreement.
Oh, I've got it.
I have it in E. Was that on the prior? I'm on the
Yeah,
prior.
the revised agenda with letter E for elephant. Thank you.
And it looks like you do have, G is actually part of KNA also. Under your reports.
Policy update.
So will we do D and your report?
I want to just kind of talk about the policy update. It has a short timeline so the public understands why, no matter what, we're encouraging it to move quickly tonight, just so we're on record. And then whenever you guys deliberate on the rest of the action items will be as it is. But I want to just be sure I clarify why it's important tonight for KNA. Good question. We can't, looking down to discussion on page 4, we can't register you yet, but I think it's September 15th is our open time to get registered for the OSBA training, the annual in Portland. And that'll fill pretty quick, so getting folks signed up and ready. Alerting Charmin now, I guess we'll sign up and ready so that we can get those rooms and get those secure the slots for attendance.
Did anybody go to this last year?
Bonnie really wanted to see folks go to it, and it was pushing for it because really, outside of inviting Vince in at cost, every time we do that, versus going to training and a lot of information, and you get to kind of pick and choose what you want to learn about. Pretty beneficial. When I was first hired, the 7-person board at that time was pretty active. Usually 4 or 5 of the 7 would be their OSBA, and when we went into a session, they'd come back and talk about it at the meeting and would benefit the other 6. So a lot of opportunity for a lot of good information, drinking from the fire hose a little bit, but as far as being trained and caught up to speed with current events, talking with other board members, what you experience in your district, what the problems, challenges, how are you making the work happen, conversations.
And this is only held once a year, right?
Yeah, this is the annual, the November one. They do some, they'll come around the fall regional, and they'll provide legislative updates from the year. That usually has been down the South Coast ESD the last couple of years. I think they do a summer one, not to the extent and level that they do. The fall is the big one, they throw all the eggs into that basket. But and they've been doing it for a long time down there. They do it in Portland because it's the airport. From the east side can fly in essentially.
Just doing next season. Okay, any other questions or anything on the agenda?
It's a big one. Let's see, the packet this big yet. This is year 9.
Policies. Does you got anything? So I guess we can adjourn the work session.